Yo, what's good, Chicago? What the deal be? Happy Sunday, happy Easter to all of you who celebrate. We're going to have a dope show today, rocking here on Twitch, YouTube, X, all the places you know and love. Excited to be rocking with y'all. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun today. Going to talk Xbox, PlayStation, the future of those consoles, and we have a dope interview with the folks from Asus talking about some of their brand integrations that they've brought to the table. So lots of goodies today, rocking on the show. So I'm very excited for those and excited for you to be here, and make sure you're checking us out on all podcast platforms all across the planet. Word. We're going to get into it, and we're going to start the show right about now.
Spawn On Me is the premier podcast spotlighting people of color. Every week, we talk news, what we've been playing, and tell you who's invited to the cookout. Our show is all about talking about gaming through a prism of blackness, because we are the culture. Welcome to Chicago, y'all.
Yo, what's good, everybody in Chicago? Welcome to the Spawn On Me podcast with Khalif Adams. I'm your host, Khalif Adams. Hope you're doing well in the space. Hope you are having an amazing Easter. Happy Easter to all of you who celebrate the resurrection of Jesus. Everybody who's coming through and hanging out on not only Easter Sunday, but NCAA Sunday for the women's championship. They're going to be rocking out, doing their thing. Shout out to Dawn Staley. Hope she wins as per usual. And again, thank you to all of you who are at home, who are hanging out and watching the show and listening and checking us out every week. We really do appreciate it. Make sure you are checking out the dopeness that is there on the feeds this week, because we had a really amazing episode with the folks from Sound System, who are some amazing veterans in the space, who bring some really dope conversation to what that game wants to be as former Rock Band developers, who made some really, really cool strides with their new game that I am very, very excited for. So if you have not checked out that episode, please go make sure you're checking that out. It is on the feeds currently right now. And I'm really excited for that episode for 568. This is 569. We have a lot of things to talk about. There was some really, really smart commentary this week on the feeds in the podcast sphere. And it was really cool to see them come from two of our friends and family in the video game industry. It is always cool to be able to see, those folks do what kind of really bring something important to the table. It's always great to be able to hear really smart commentary from multiple outlets, kind of funny, and our friends over at Gamertag Radio, who brought some really good angles to a lot of the things I think a lot of people have been discussing, a lot of things that people have been talking about, a lot of things that people have been kind of walking through in their minds about where's the future of this space kind of lay? Where are the kind of important parts for what this means for the gaming industry? You had the whole crew sit down and talk about the future of Xbox on Kind of Funny, and then you had the fam Danny and Ree on Gamertag Radio talk to Circana's one and only Matt Piscatella, who came in with some really smart facts about the current state of the space. There was a really good opening question about affordability for families who are in the industry currently, or I'm sorry, not in the industry, but folks who are consumers in the space now. If you're from a low income family, how that is going to affect you in a real big way. And I pulled a couple of clips that we're going to play during the show. And again, these are a little bit longer because they have a ton of context around it. But there were some things on there that I watched it and I was like, man, this is really good. Here's a smart take. And then I came back with it having not only some more questions, but really had some moments where I was like, if this is the way that we're thinking about where we're going currently, what does that mean for the future of this year? What does that mean for the future of the space coming down the line? What does that mean for me as a person who is a proxy to a certain extent, sometimes as a proxy between industry folks, my own fandom, the current where we're looking to go forward. And, as a fan of each one of these platforms and a lot of these pieces, what am I excited about? And what is the direction I hope they move into going forward? So I think it was a really good week for some soul searching in some ways. I think it brings up a lot of questions while we've gotten some good information that has come up from various brands throughout the week. Last week, PlayStation raised their prices again on the PlayStation platform. Now with the PlayStation 5 Pro, as of this recording, now being $900 if you want a console in that space, which is a huge budgetary ask if you're looking to play at the highest level on PlayStation. There have already been a couple of price hikes across the board for Sony and Xbox over the past couple of months. Over the past, at least in this generation of consoles, there's been a couple of, raisings of prices already in that space. So what does that mean now for, where we go next and where we move forward in that space? And what does that mean for all of you at home who are looking to either upgrade, to be in the mix now, knowing that potentially this means that we have a longer cycle for what this is going to be from a console perspective if you're in the console space? I think there are a lot of pullaways and takeaways from these discussions that I would love to hear your comments on in the comment section of the YouTube video, of the podcast itself. Make sure to leave comments on our Spotify versions as well, and leave us 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. But I did come away really like, we are in a really weird, trepidatious, and kind of scary spot in terms of the industry as a whole. And with all the pieces that are happening around the world, the geopolitical angles to all of this, the rising prices of literally everything, especially if you're in the U.S., due to the Trump administration's doubling down on stupidity alongside the AI boom that's happening. There's so many different angles to this, which I think both conversations really got into. And I think the best conversation this week was definitely the one on Gamertag Radio with Matt Piscatella, because I think it was a really well-rounded discussion point there. So for this episode, I'm going to play a couple of clips, and I'm going to dig into my thoughts afterwards and share what I think were the super salient stuff and the things that I think they might have missed in those discussions that I feel like I would love to see people talk about in that total discussion, that much larger discussion that's happening. Because I think there were a couple of things that were missed, or at least not necessarily missed, but just angles that I think are different than those particular folks. And then after that, we'll take a quick break and we'll have a really fantastic interview with the team from ASUS. We had some dope folks on to talk about, brand integrations, which I think is something that we don't really get a peek behind the window of often. I've been a big fan of ASUS gear for a long period of time. I think the ASUS Xbox Ally ROG Ally X, I've said that totally wrong, is a clear example of a brand integration and collaboration I think worked really well. And one that I think is even cooler is the Kojima Productions laptop that we saw kind of come out in the past couple of weeks. The Xbox ROG Ally X has been my favorite handheld for a long time. And it has always been something where I think it is cool to see people be able to bridge the gap between technology and form and style. I think that's really, really dope. I want more of that in those spaces. So we got a chance to really dig into the weeds of how those things kind of came to fruition. What were some learnings from those collaborative efforts? And what is it like to kind of work with someone like Kojima-san in those spaces? So the first thing we're going to get to in this episode is the 411. So, with the future of games now being in the air and being up in the air, I think a lot of discussion has come about with so many things that have popped off in the past couple of months. The changing of the guard between, the C-suite moving from Phil Spencer and Sarah Bond to now Asha Sharma and Matt Booty. And we're seeing these rollouts of conversations that have been happening over the past couple of months that have really bolstered what looks to be a return to form for Xbox in a lot of different ways, not only from a game perspective with Asha Sharma going on social media saying lots of things around we want to get back to making great games. We want to make sure console and hardware is at the center of this discussion ecosystem for us. We want to make sure that we're paying attention to the fans in a lot of different ways. I think PlayStation has always been a little bit quiet in the ways that they've discussed those things, and we'll talk more about that after we see some of the clips that I've put together. But for this segment, I do want to think about some of those layers in much broader ways, right? Where we're seeing things come back like FanFest in a much bigger way. That was a discussion that came up this past week where they're moving to almost, I think, 7 cities across the world where they're going to be doing these fan events, which I think is a really smart and brilliant move because FanFest for Xbox has always been something that's been very, very good. It's never been something where I've looked at it and was like, why are we doing this? It makes a ton of sense. The pressing of the flesh for the Xbox team to be able to do that work alongside players just makes a ton of sense. I miss things like PSX. We used to have some of those things for PlayStation, but we no longer have those things. So the folks from Kind of Funny had a really good back-to-back conversation around how to fix Xbox from their perspective. They put on the hat of saying, if we were to take over the brand and change it for what we want, here are some changes we would make. And they had Andy, Blessing, Paris, Snowbike Mike, and the other guy, Greg Miller, that guy, talk about what they would want to have in that space. And I think there was some really good points there that I think would really dig into it. So we're going to play a couple of clips. We're going to play basically a longer clip from each segment, the PlayStation 1 and the Xbox One. We're going to start with the Xbox One. We're going to end with the PlayStation 1. And then after that, I'm going to run a clip from Gamertag Radio's latest episode talking to Matt Piscatella about the future of games and kind of who's winning the race in those ways. So we're going to play the first clip from the Xbox part of the show, and then I'll have some conversations about that after we finish on the PlayStation side.
One of the things I look at, right, as far as if I was to wear the CEO cap at Xbox, a thing to do, and we're talking about software, we're talking about games, we're talking about first party versus third party, I look at the first party lineup and go, to your point, Mike, right, like, have they been killing it? Not necessarily, but I think they have the IP to do so, and I think investment in those IPs is what you need to do. It's the way that we always joke about, I think it was Embracer that says we need to exploit Lord of the Rings. I don't think you need to exploit one IP, but you do have a catalog of IP that I think if you dial in and narrow down and go, what IP defines Xbox and how do we support these IP as much as possible? You look at Nintendo, you look at PlayStation, and when I think of Nintendo, I think of Mario, I think of Pokemon, I think of a handful of games, and they're investing in those games. When I think of PlayStation, I think of Last of Us, I think of Uncharted, maybe not Uncharted, Spider-Man, and they invest in the Horizon, they invest in those, right? At Xbox, I look at Elder Scrolls. Elder Scrolls should be leading the charge as like, this is exclusive. And this is what defines Xbox. Halo, let's bring that back in the way that they're already doing
this,
right?
This is our identity.
Our identity needs to be Elder Scrolls, Halo, I'll say Banjo-Kazooie, right? If you wanted to lean into kids. I think Call of Duty, Fallout, Doom, Forza Horizon, lean into those.
You took too long to get the Fallout. Like, I think right now with the success of that show and that being so mainstream, if they were able to say, yo, Fallout 5, New Vegas 2 from Obsidian, whatever, even remake, is exclusive and you can only get it here. We own it. We're the best place to play, the best place to watch.
It's the only place to play, right?
Yeah.
Like, I saw somebody in chat say, does Xbox need a Last of Us? No, they have Fallout. Like, they have the IP. You just need to nail them. That's why I'm not convinced on the third party.
I would push back just a little bit of like, how have they not supported those, right? Like, those are the flagship titles that you just brought up, right? And I think over the past 5 years now, we've seen Xbox on the Metacritic side being like one of the highest publishers every single year, right? And it's like, it is going to take time. You purchase Bethesda, you purchase Activision King, you buy, 14 new studios, right? And that takes time to develop those games. We talk about how these games are getting bigger and more time. It takes 3 years, 5 years, 7 years to develop these games. And when you purchase Bethesda and they're now in the oh, well, we're making Starfield and how our lineup is we do this. It's like, all right, well, now I'm kind of handcuffed waiting on you. And as Greg would say, hey, let's start making other studios
That's
do
exactly
that.
what you do,
And the messaging has always been, hey, we don't come into Tim Schafer's house and make him make Banjo. We don't go to Obsidian and say, you got to make this.
People who said that are gone.
And those people are gone.
That is Microsoft going, you were too nice, Phil and Sarah. That is not what we need. We need this.
We would be in a lot better
that's the
position. We would be in a lot better position right now in terms of how we wanted to kind of forecast what they should do if the big, long-awaited, brand-new IP from Bethesda, Starfield, came out and was a 10 out of 10 across the board, masterpiece level.
We wouldn't be talking about Bethesda like
we
this.
would be
right.
in a much better spot right now because we would go, the next one, people are going to show up immediately. But now, I mean, I would even say going back to Fallout 4, which wasn't the lauded, like, everybody loves this and it's the best thing ever sort of video game. I think we're in a weird spot with it now. Obviously, Skyrim delivered and people love Skyrim, but we're in a weird spot with that where like they're not even a safe bet in terms of everybody loving the video game. They speak
to a specific audience.
Yeah. You got games like Baldur's Gate 3 that pushed it forward, and now we compare these two. We go, you don't got it like that, right? We look at Crimson Desert, we look at Dragon's Dogma, games that are in this fantasy realm that are pushing certain features of the game forward, and you look at Bethesda and go, you seem to be a little bit behind. And it's like, what do you need to get there, right?
I think Elder Scrolls will get us back here, though.
We all hope, right?
But I think that, I just think Starfield is too different of a game. I think that game is too disjointed as far as how you explore that world. I think Elder Scrolls brings it all back to basics. Hey, you see the mountain over there? You can boots on the ground. The mountain over there, you can walk there. Hey, the factions that you love and know, here they are. Hey, the quests, the vampires, the fucking dragons, all these things that you know are here.
But
we had Mass Effect, and Mass Effect was a very similar thing.
Let Paris get it.
No, I just want to comment that I love this conversation currently because this is the problem. The problem is you got Bethesda, you got Double Fine, you got all these studios 5, 6, 7, 8+ years ago, and we've not seen the results that we should have been getting from them. I think about Halo Infinite in this conversation a lot because that was the face of the Xbox Series X. Master Chief is literally on the box when they launched it. And the game didn't deliver for various reasons. But the fact that your number one IP, or at least it was your number one IP, did not deliver in this generation is the fundamental problem right now. And to your point, there's a lot of people making those decisions are no longer here anymore. You have the IPs. You have to get them out in a timely manner at quality and make them must play. And the fact that they have not been able to do that up until recently that's the problem. So I'm sure she's coming in and I'm speaking of Asha Sharma, and that is probably the mandate. We can't be nice anymore. We got to get results. And until their own internal studios can deliver premier titles that Jeff Keighley has in the Game of the Year conversation, Xbox is going to just be spinning their wheels no matter what they do. You got to fix the games.
So there was a lot of pieces to that much larger conversation, which was probably about an hour plus discussion that went over, with the team over at Kind of Funny. And there were some parts of that discussion that I really did think made a ton of sense. I think they talked a lot about Xbox bringing back exclusivity in a real way, either timed or not, trying to figure out good ways to continue to ingratiate themselves to the community. Even Snowback Mike talked about really, even bringing up Major Nelson coming back and potentially being the face of the community again and being in that spot. That's the thing that I have been there. The thing that was really good about the conversation that came out of Kind of Funny was both on the Xbox and the PlayStation side, because I think the PlayStation side also had a little bit of this too that we'll show, is this want for there to be other folks who are out front having these conversations for the brands. I've gotten so many messages over the past year when I have said this out loud months ago that was like, if you really want to start to ingratiate yourself back to the teams and you're changing all these things, you're changing the This Is Xbox campaign, you're removing that and you're ethering that and putting that into the ET the ET landfill with the rest of the stuff. And all of these pieces, it would help to be able to have some folks who you can look at and say, when we do have these celebratory wins and these celebratory spaces, or even the ones that aren't, it's nice to be able to have a face of the company that you can walk to and go to and look at and say, this is a person who's leading us into whatever that future may be, both on the PlayStation and Xbox side. So the piece about the exclusivity part, I think is smart. And again, whoever clips this is going to be like, these people said this last time and they were against exclusives like a month ago and now they're not. Again, discussions change, things move, nothing is set in stone, and it shouldn't be. And if your positioning is set in stone, you're always going to be behind the curve of what those things mean to you as a player and as a person who is potentially even doing this kind of work in that space. So one of the things that came through on that clip that I thought was really interesting was Blessing and the rest of the team talking about IP. And I think the want for the teams to go back to the well with these legacy titles that have been at the forefront of the Xbox and respective PlayStation identities for a long period of time. The Halos, the Fables, the Forzas, the Gears of War, all of those things. And I think one of the things that came away from that discussion for me that was actually kind of disappointing was we're at this really interesting space for the Xbox brand. I think Asha Sharma has an ability to do a lot of things during her run here at Xbox. I have been really excited to see how she is currently reaching out to the fan base via social media in some of those ways. I've also been really, really happy to see the language that she's been using for how this is all going to kind of look for players in those ways. I think that's great. The thing that I am hoping for, and I think this speaks to where I am as a player, as a fan of all of those things, I'm kind of tired of everyone leaning on old IP. I love Halo. I love Gears of War. I love Fable. I love Forza. I love those titles. I love those games. Those are part of that ecosystem in a much bigger way. But to be honest, and to be really, really forthright with that, like, I'm tired of old IP. If I am looking to go buy a new Xbox Helix or a new PlayStation 6 or any of that stuff, and I think the differences between the brands are very, very evident in where they are currently and what the needs are for both brands. And I think Xbox is kind of funny. I'm sorry, Kind of Funny spoke to this in a much bigger way of saying, PlayStation doesn't need to be fixed. They need some tweaking, as opposed to Xbox needs to be fixed. But as a player, if I'm spending that kind of money, which is going to be an exorbitant amount of money now, even more so than it ever was before, if I'm a person who is marketing these machines to other people, yes, you have to play into the fandom of the brand that got you here. You have to play into the nostalgia. You have to play into the folks who are not looking at this from an analytical perspective and trying to analyze the moves of brands in these ways like Kind of Funny, Gamertag Radio, all these other outlets are doing in these ways. But as a player, as a baseline person who picks up a controller and gets excited to turn on my console, for as much as I am looking forward to seeing what these new games do, these new versions of old games do, I am so more infinitely excited about what could be. And I hope that Asha Sharma, if she does have that, thing that Greg and Paris and the rest of those talked about of having these new things that they want to be able to showcase for these platforms, I hope it's not the old stuff. I hope it's new stuff. I feel like this is a perfect time to really move Xbox in a different direction. If we're going to wipe the slate clean and we're going to start over to a certain extent, we're going to say we're moving this stuff in a much bigger way. We're going to say we're getting back to making great games. We're going to say we're going to do all this stuff. I would absolutely love to see Xbox go in a direction where they are looking at the new. They are looking at the new ideas. They are looking at new strategies. They are looking at new IPs that aren't just leaning on things that we grew up with and are now older in the space. I've been an Xbox fan for over 20 years now. I've been a player for over 20 years now. And as much as I love Halo, I don't care that much about a new Halo coming out. Unless, again, this is a cohesive thing. This is a lock and key kind of thing. If the new hardware affords something monumental and different in a way that is changing the way that these IPs play and gives us new beautiful worlds, gives us new spaces to engage in, gives us new interesting layers from a social connectivity perspective, gives us new actual gameplay loops of things that we haven't seen before, technology in the controller and in the console that does something different, then I'm down for it. I'm excited for it. I want it. I am thirsting for it. But we are in the most risk-averse layer of the industry that we've seen in a very long time. And I was happy to see that Matt Piscatella talked about it on Gamer Tag Radio, because the conversations were really, really smart about what that looks like. But my hope is that Asha Sharma and Matt Booty and the rest of those teams start to look at some of those IPs and say like, all right, Banjo-Kazooie, I know people care highly about Banjo-Kazooie. Most people don't care about Banjo-Kazooie. I don't believe it. I don't, and not in 2026. I don't believe that most people care about that thing. Yes, Halo will be a tentpole title for them once they get that thing, into gold status and getting ready to be shipped. We're gonna have a big marketing cycle that's gonna go around that, or we should have a big marketing cycle that goes around that. We're already seeing that happen with Forza. Forza's starting to get previews out very, very soon. Those games have their communities that have been built over time, but if you're looking at TAM, total addressable market, and you're looking at growth, I don't think those games grow your market. I don't think that those things move the needle in a perspective. Those are good titles to have to hold the line. Shout out to the folks over at Iron Lords. To hold the line, those are the games that go out to make people feel like we're not going anywhere as a company. We are not going anywhere as a brand. But me as a person who is excited about what the future of video games can look like, most of those titles don't excite me out the box. Like, I'm hyped for Forza. I think Forza going to Japan is really, really smart. I think it adds some extra layers to that thing, but the baseline of that game is still Forza. It's still the same game that you've known to come and love for a long time. Fable will be different because it is a much bigger world using different systems and different gameplay loops. That is a very cool thing for what that looks like. E-Day, that's coming out hopefully very, very soon, is still at its baseline going to be very much a Gears of War game. And I think to a certain extent, that isn't as exciting to me in that way. So my hope, and I think, the folks on Kind of Funny talked about this in a very nostalgic way of like, if we did that work. But I think that that's a big missed discussion point where we are consistently leaning on old IP to bolster the space that we're currently in. And I think when you do have new IPs, either they don't land in a way that feels good for players, they are potentially incomplete in some of the ways that they go out. Some of them just kind of fall on their faces. Some of them get ruined by your favorite influencer or non-favorite influencer and discussions that happen on the internet. And there's a lot of factors that move into this discussion that wind up changing what you can do as a company in a space where rising costs are there and all of those things are there. I did a quick AI search because I was lazy and just looked up some stuff to see like what were some games that came out in this generation that would basically be new IPs. Some of the games that came out: Grounded, Medium, Pentiment, Hi-Fi Rush, Redfall, Starfield, Avowed, and there's going to be some other games that are going to be coming out. Beast Reincarnation, Kiln, from Double Fine and some other places. One of the things that they talked about in this piece was giving some of these other studios the ball and saying, oh, well, Obsidian, maybe Avowed isn't the game that we want you to make because we need money and we need to move the needle from a P&L perspective, profit and loss perspective. Oh, Double Fine, maybe you are the ones who make the new Banjo-Kazooie game. oh, here's this other old IT. And I'm like, why are we burning dope talent to make the thing that everyone kind of already knows is there? If you are excited about that stuff, I think that's cool. That's dope. I am not in that same camp. I think that the thing that is holding gaming back right now is the fact that no one can take risk. And I think that the thing that is holding everybody up is not hardware. It's hardware in some aspects, but it's not hardware. It's the profit margin. And it's the ability to figure out and play in new spaces that are actually exciting to the developer population and developer community. I want them to be able to make new stuff that actually excites people, that actually feels really interesting, that actually feels fun and different. I'm tired of the same things over and over again while we've gone through multiple life cycles of console hardware and mobile hardware. We're still talking about Halo in 2026. I would love Halo Studios to make something completely different and do something different, even if it's smaller, even if it's a smaller project, even if it's something else that is adjacent to Master Chief. There's so many other things in that world that you could play around with, and we get the same kind of game all the time. Now, mind you, when that thing gets ready to go out, I'll be excited for it. I want to see what it is. I want to see what the innovation is going to wind up being. But alongside IP fatigue and subscription fatigue, which they just spoke about, which I think was smart. Again, like dropping Game Pass down to kind of 1 or 2 tiers and making those things really clear and being simplistic about what that means. The messaging from what they are looking to do from an Xbox Anywhere perspective, it continues to be really smart. The cloud stuff makes a lot of sense. Them putting stuff on different platforms makes sense currently because that's what makes them money. But again, if you're talking about exclusives and you want all those things to be there, the exclusives that I want aren't the same IPs that you've always been putting out for the past 10 to 15 years. That bores me as a player. And that doesn't even speak to the next generation of players who is out there currently, who has a very different idea of what is interesting and fun to them because they're playing the 3 major tentpole live services games, Roblox, Fortnite, and Minecraft. So I think there's a conversation to be had about like, what does the future look like in an actual way if we are wiping the slate clean and doing something different? If we are standing pat and putting out the same kinds of games just to make sure that you are holding on to your audience, I feel like that is a diminishing return perspective to have. I think now is the amazing time. You have all of these studios to be able to try new things, put out new stuff, make new IPs. Give me something that feels interesting and feels akin to what, to be honest, PlayStation has been doing for a while. They've been putting out new things and have much bigger scopes things that are in the mix that have some IP hold in a different way. You know what I mean? Like they've been talking about, and I'll play the clip in a second, but like Intergalactic, whatever that game is going to be, I've been excited for that thing for a year and some change, and we haven't seen a lick of that game yet. We saw literally one trailer. And that game has me infinitely more excited than, to be honest, a new Halo project, right? Because it's new. It's playing in a new space. It's thinking up new ideas. They didn't go back to Uncharted for a reason. So I'm like, maybe that's what I'm hoping for in the next space. I do want to play, before I switch over to the PlayStation thing, I understand the current market of where we are. And I understand how hard it is to get anything new into people's faces. We have the most games that we've ever seen on the planet come out more often than ever. The ability to make a game is difficult, but there are a ton of new games out every day. And it was a really good piece on the Gamertag Radio piece where, you know, they talked about the folks who are kind of most willing to try new things on PC because of the lack of needing to pay for multiplayer and things like that. It's a really good point. And again, it's a piece that I think you should all be checking out. But I want new. I want new stuff out of Xbox. I want Xbox to feel new. I want them to go hard in the paint. I want them to feel like they are embracing their identity in a new way that's bringing in new people. And I feel like leaning on your laurels in that old way of pulling in those old things just doesn't cut it anymore. And I feel like it is not a thing where I'm separating myself from the brand because I love the brand and I love playing in that space. But they've got to do something that is going to be bold, whether it be hardware design, whether it be a feature set, whether it be going after new IPs and getting exclusivity on some of that stuff, whether it be curation, which I thought was a really good conversation that we'll see in both of those pieces that come up. But I want them to go hard on new. Old IP is not going to be the move for me in that way. I do want to talk about the PlayStation side because I think there was a really good clip from Kind of Funny as well. Let's check that out right about now.
What I've brought up a million times and I want to bring back out, of course, is that CFO, the Chief Financial Officer, Tao Lin, who talked about the shareholders and talked to the shareholders about the audience, right? Stick with me. I'm going to read from Polygon's Patricia Hernandez reporting. Based on Sony's early February earnings call, where CFO Lin detailed the Japanese company's latest business strategy to shareholders, Lin's presentation noted that while sales of the new PlayStation 5 units are declining, Sony saw a small uptick in monthly active users for the console in December 2025. Revenue from PlayStation Plus, Sony's gaming subscription service, quote-unquote, reached a record high, end quote, last quarter, Lin said. Sony intends to keep negotiating with suppliers to keep costs down on the hardware front, but the trajectory of these negotiations is hard to predict. In the short term, Sony needs to find a way to keep making money. Quote, given the stage of our console cycle, our hardware sales strategy can be adjusted flexibly, and we intend to minimize the impact of increased memory costs on this segment going forward by prioritizing monetization of the installed base to date. I think that is such an important quote. And this is before they raise the price, Pro up to $150, $100, et cetera, down to $50 for the Portal. I think that's so important because I really do think, even though that sounds bad to a degree of monetizing, I think that is where we are headed. That storm is going to come ashore here and hit them. And when they do, I think that they're in such a different spot than Xbox is. On the Xbox show yesterday, I talked so much about how I don't trust Microsoft coming down on them. This is bad. Eventually, Microsoft goes, fuck it, Xbox is dead, Microsoft gaming, that's what we're doing, yada, yada, yada. PlayStation being so successful already, when this storm hits, and it gets worse, as I've been predicting it will, or whatever, I really do see them hemorrhaging. More closures, it sucks. More layoffs, it sucks. But getting back down to, shit, we need to have the rallying cry of this is PlayStation. And going back, even I'm not talking numbers and it being that dire, but going back to that PlayStation 3 into 4 mentality of like, no, we are Groot. You are PlayStation. We are celebrating that. We are talking to the audience and talking about the exclusives and talking about the developers and having a face that's actually connected to all this. Because for me, that's what I would fix about PlayStation now, both getting ready for that, but also think a little bit of what I talked about with Xbox. Like, PlayStation was at its best when there were faces attached to PlayStation. When it was that, yeah, you could buy a PlayStation and just play the biggest games and never know the people behind your games. But when there was a Shu, and there was an Adam, and there was a Jackie T, Jack Tretton out there, like, that was fun for us, and it became, you knew more about what was going on. And as PlayStation 4 took PlayStation to the stratosphere by having such a simple thing, Mark Cerny being out there on stage, we know we fucked up with the cell processor in PS3. This is easy to develop for. It's about games. Well, Xbox said it's about Call of Duty and TV and Call of Duty and TV. Like, they went the opposite direction. PlayStation cooked them. And they lived in that for a while with the sharing video, Adam and Shu, all that different stuff that we loved. And then once they got humongous, they didn't want people talking anymore. So they shut that down. People left the company. Now Herman's there, but Herman barely speaks ever. You're just at a place now where it's just a brand. And I think just being a brand can have brand loyalty, but it doesn't have that all the shit's going south and I am committed to this platform feel to it.
It's fun.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
It's funny how I feel like some of our talking points here are going to so much echo some of the Xbox points, because I know Mike kind of brought up the same thing with Xbox of like, bring back Major Nelson, bring back some faces that we can actually connect with. I think one of my main points in talking about this, to Greg's thing of, we got to get back to like prime PlayStation, we got to lock in and focus to weather the storm, is IP and is the video games. Let's get back to making the video games that people care about
Yes.
and want to play, right? Like
Games.
I look back at late PS4 generation as like, damn, we were living. Going back to the games that I was mentioning, whether it be God of War 2018, Spider-Man, Horizon, Last of Us 2, Ghost of Tsushima, right? Like these are within a 3-year period of each other. If I was to reach back further, it would be Bloodborne, right? Like Uncharted 4. This generation, we've seen so much development time get lost to this live service push, and these games either not coming out or coming out and disappearing in 2 weeks because oh shit, this didn't work, people didn't actually want this. I'm not necessarily of the team wipe all live service from existence from
course not.
PlayStation. I think there could be something there. Of course, me, Mike, Andy are loving Marathon, and like that's a game I want to continue to see live, even though I get scared. I was telling Mike before, I'm like, if Marathon shuts down, I'm out of here. I'm not doing video games anymore. I'm done. But we got to get back to giving people the games that they want, right?
Yeah.
Video games take a long time to make. I shouldn't be waiting this long between like some of these bigger PlayStation titles, whether it be something like an Uncharted, whether it be something like The Last of Us, whether it be something like even Intergalactic, right? Like,
And I would, if I
Go
jump
for it,
in
go for it.
to go with your point here, you shouldn't be waiting so long between big PlayStation titles. And I would go as far as to say Ghost of Yotei, Uncharted, other studios. You just mentioned 3 Naughty Dog games. Sure, but it used to be that it felt like, all right, well, Sony Bend will put out their game, and then Sucker Punch will do this. Then we'll get the Naughty Dog game. Then it'll be a Gran Turismo. Then you could see where we were going and see the lineup of why you're dedicated to
and
PlayStation.
to take it a step further, and this again will echo some of what we talked about with Xbox. I look at Naughty Dog. I look at, all right, you guys are all in on Intergalactic right now. Game's looking great. Awesome. Hey, somebody else is making Uncharted. I don't care if you don't want somebody else to make Uncharted. We are PlayStation. We own the IP. We need this right now because financial times are getting tough. We're taking Uncharted and we're giving it to a Blue Point RIP, or we're giving it to a studio that we own that would spend better time working on this than to make the next Days Gone that comes and goes.
Again, I'm not going to harp on this because I just talked about it for 10, 15 minutes. But if this is the state of the space where we're continuously asking all of these other smaller teams to take up the mantle of these other IPs that are the same IPs that we've already known to come and love, I think we're in a bad spot as a gaming industry. Now, mind you, I was looking at some of the IPs that they put out as well on the PlayStation side. Astro's Playroom, Returnal, Helldivers 2, Stellar Blade, Astrobot, Rise of the Ronin, which didn't do that well. But like Saros, which is going to be coming out very, very soon, and of course Intergalactic, like Bless said. Even if you just look at the framing of those games in comparison to what we've been talking about on the Xbox side, those are very different kinds of titles with vastly different understandings of what they're trying to be. I think the portfolios are going to be very different, of course, based on where you are for, second party studios, first party studios, and that kind of stuff. But they're also playing in a space that feels newer, right? Even if the underlying ideas around what those games are going to wind up being are fairly similar, the things that you're looking at are like, oh, well, that's a totally new story in a world that I didn't think I knew about, like Tsushima or Yotei or any of those things, even though those are, a sequel. Yotei is a sequel. What was it? Returnal, very different game that could absolutely be on an Xbox platform, right? It could totally be on that space. Where are those kinds of games coming out of this camp doing this stuff? I'm really excited about State of Decay 3, which just got some information about a playtest that's happening. I'm super excited about that thing. That is different. But we saw that 3 years ago, and now we're just finally kind of seeing stuff bubble up around it. I feel like we are, again, in this space of stagnation from a creative perspective. And that's not necessarily from the teams themselves in that same discussion. I think from a fan and a player perspective, we are not seeing people give games the potential to grow in some of these ways too. Now, mind you, again, that comes back to money, that comes back to time, that comes back to interest, that comes back to a lot of different things. But like I've said on this show a long time ago, all of these things that we have seen bubble up, layoffs and internal turmoil and industry mess ups and people not getting their games out and grifters and all of this stuff is affecting the game space in a way that is very, very new, in a way that is not helpful. And it is now coming to fruition that we have now gotten out of the COVID era, and we're finally seeing the last drips and drabs of those games finally starting to come out. But what's going to happen after that? And what are we going to talk about after that? The last Xbox showcase was fantastic. The last PlayStation showcase was pretty good. They had some stuff in there. Kena was really cool. There was a couple of games in there that looked really dope. But you know what? There was a game that got everybody excited. Wolverine. Wolverine was the game when everybody was like, oh shit. Right? So like, those are some big games that are coming out on both platforms, but they are just very different in what those look like. That goes back to that conversation again. I want the Xbox version to come out with something that is very, very new. I want PlayStation to continue to grow in a space that is doing stuff that is very new and innovative in a lot of those ways. Shout out to Ariel Knight. Go play his new game that's out in the world right now. He says the middle class gamer who will try new things are gone. That's going to come up to a spot that we're going to talk about right now. Actually, you know what? Let's run into that because it perfectly runs into what Ariel said. Because that conversation around the middle class gamer, the gamer who is not willing to try new things is really, really evident. But I think this was a really good conversation that came up on Gamertag Radio that speaks to that really, really well.
And like thinking of the sort of like the big three, right, that we usually talk about, taking PC for as much as we can out of the conversation between the strategy that you mentioned of Xbox putting their software everywhere, PlayStation trying to make their hardware number one, and Nintendo really focusing on brand. You know, that Mario movie may get to 1 billion faster than anything we've ever seen. Who's making the best bets here? Who's winning?
I think surviving is winning right now.
Yeah.
Another fantastic question and positioning of how you're thinking about it. It's exactly how I'm thinking about it too. Everyone's placing different bets, right? That's what makes things interesting right now. Back in the day, like everyone was just Cube and Xbox and PlayStation 2 were all kind of battling for the same market. Now it's a different world, right? Everyone's got their own kind of angle on it. I was a little surprised to see PlayStation pull back on the PC thing because they need to expand, but of course, new leadership, former hardware folks, like I can see why they're trying to retrench that. Xbox has invested in all of these things, these alternative ways of playing. But even they're starting to talk more about like centering on the console, which I don't even know what that really means yet. Who wins is going to depend to a great extent on what happens next in the macro economy, in the geopolitical situation, in the component situation, and in the AI data center situation. If it gets worse, if all that gets worse, then the folks who have invested most in cloud probably are better off. If that chills out, then the folks that have invested less probably do better. And Nintendo, they've taken the most broad appeal, like you mentioned, of just trying to not have to rely so much on their gaming group to drive their business. And that might end up being the smartest there. But yeah, everyone's kind of taken a different bet, but how that plays out, I don't think anyone really knows.
Surviving is winning. That is the tagline of 2026, 2027, and the back half of this generation. Surviving is winning. That is a wild and sobering statement, and speaks to the current way that we're all moving as people in the industry, people who are thinking about the space, folks who are looking to build in, content spaces in real ways. Like, it is going to be a very specific time for a lot of different folks to figure out how to get in where they fit in. I think everyone is worried about that. I think Matt spoke about it beautifully when he talked about all of these things connecting, and it goes back to, episode that we put out where the tagline or the episode line was Trump is making everything more expensive for you as a gamer. And we're seeing that happen in big fruition, in big ways now, where AI plus tariffs plus uncertainty plus bad geopolitical moves are now coming to really take your hobby and ruin it. And it's been, again, these aren't the only pieces of that conversation. There are multiple layers of that discussion that play into that. Again, there's been a lot of mismanagement from a lot of different teams. There's been a lot of big bets that didn't go well. There's been a lot of stepping on rakes by a lot of teams. But thinking about where we kind of move forward, it is going to be a really weird time in the next couple of months. I think if you are still a person who is on the fence, this is going to be the longest generation of players staying pat and not going to a new platform. I think the folks who are the first movers always are going to be in that space. The folks who are looking to get the newest, best, and brightest are going to be in that space and willing to spend their money for the money for their games. But there was a really good stat that came out of the conversation on Gamertag Radio where they said the folks who are making money, you're making over $100,000 a year as a family, those folks are spending money on games. If you're making under $50,000 or $50,000 or less, none of that money is going to want to going to these kinds of pastimes and hobbies, because you're having to spend extra money just to live. So I think at the end of the day, the biggest takeaway from all of this stuff is I think each one of these brands is at a really interesting space. And I think even Nintendo now at this point is getting a little bit of backlash based on their kind of variable pricing, especially the stuff that's been going on their hardware side, especially with physical games and things like that, where the bet on nostalgia might not necessarily be able to sustain where people are moving to and needs from that perspective. I think what also winds up happening is we're going to see a lot more people just not feeling good about the space, because gaming for the most part is your pastime and is your escape to find other things. And once that escape goes away, you're going to have to divulge and divert that energy into something else. And a lot of folks are not necessarily going to be able to do that from a gaming perspective. So, you know, the rise in the price of the PlayStation, the change in all the small things of like how much is it going to cost to be able to get those new things to you, all are going to have a much bigger cost and a much bigger price. And all of that stuff is going to trickle down to players. And I don't think those numbers are going to change. I think we are definitely in the scope of the $1,000 console, $1,000 plus console. And I don't think that even if the geopolitical changes happen or the financial things stabilize in a way that's going to be beneficial to us as people change, I don't think those prices are going to go away. And that sucks for everybody, because you won't have anything else to go to in those spaces, or you're just going to have to be one of the folks who is not playing that many games per year. Or it may be a thing where a company like Xbox can capitalize and say, we're going to change the pricing on Game Pass in a way that actually affords for you to be able to play more things. I think it actually gives you more spaces to play, because Play Anywhere as a concept and as a feature is a more valuable one than PlayStation Plus at this point in an actual way, because you'll get the benefit of being able to do that stuff across console and PC. So even if you're not in that space, you have options. I think with PlayStation now saying we don't want to put things on PC, that removes options from you and boxes you in as a PlayStation player. If you're looking at not being able to afford the new console, if you can't afford a $1,000 console, which we don't know the price yet, but it's potentially going to be around that. And you're not even going to be able to go play things on PC if you have a beefy PC to be able to go play those things. So that's going to be really, really hard to be able to do anything like that. I don't think we're going to get a PlayStation Xbox Series X version of a PlayStation 6. I don't think we're going to get multiple SKUs on it that are going to be like, here's a cheaper version of it and here's the more expensive version of it. Because then you're bifurcating the audience again. You know, before it was digital versus non-digital, which is different than here's a lower spec version versus the high spec one that you're used to. So, man, we are in a really weird, wild spot, but we have a lot of things on the horizon for what that looks like. All right, we're going to take a quick, super fast, mega fast break, and we'll be right back after this. What's good, everybody? We're going to take literally a 30-second break, and then we're going to run directly into our ASUS interview right after this. So I'm going to play music for 30 seconds, and then we'll run right back into it. Okay, we are going to do another segment. We're going to come right back into this episode. Thank you all for hanging out in the chat. It is a live stream, Nick. I see you, Nick Pello 5692. This is not a premiere. This is a live broadcast on YouTube, Twitter, X, and all the other stuff that is on the world. All right, we're going to head back into it in 3, 2, 1 and a half. Welcome back to the Spawn on Me podcast. This is episode 569 of our show. Thank you so much for hanging out during our break. And shout out to all the folks who are here watching us live on Twitch, X, YouTube, and all those spaces. Again, remember to go subscribe to our show. You can go subscribe to our channel. We're trying to get to 10,000 subscribers on YouTube. Of course, we want to get to 100,000 on YouTube so we can get a plaque. But we're going to get to 10,000 before the end of the year. We want to get to 10,000 folks on our Spotify account, our Apple Podcast account, and all those wonderful places. So we have some goals, God damn it. We want to get there in some real spaces. On the back half of our show, if you missed the first half, go check out the rest of it and go check out the conversations around how to fix all the Xbox and PlayStation, all that good stuff. But to end out this episode, we had a really great discussion with the team over at ASUS to talk about their production line, the making of the Xbox ROG Ally X, and the Kojima laptop, working with those two teams and working on the collabs there. So here is our interview with the folks from ASUS. Everybody in Chicago, we have a very special episode of Spawn on Me. Today, we are rocking with Whitson Gordon, coming to us from the team over at ASUS. And we're going to be talking a little bit about how they're growing with so many of these cool brands that we know and to come and love, and how the collaborations have been working alongside them. Whitson, it's so good to have you come and rock with us today. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Khalif, how you been?
I'm doing well. It has been a nice day here in Portland, Oregon. The sun is actually out. Even though I am in the basement, not absorbing any of that vitamin D. But it's great to be able to have amazing folks like you come hang out with me to talk about video games and talk about hardware in this space.
That's the main thing that I like to do with my time. So you called the right guy.
Heck yeah, exactly. So I've been a big fan of the ASUS brand for a long time. The ROG part of the vertical and part of the business has been one that I'm mostly connected to through me being a PC builder and me being a person who games
of course.
Often. You as the senior manager on the marketing content side, I know a lot of folks in my world and fans of the show are like, so what do you do? So when you have a role like that, what's kind of your main objective when you're working for the brand?
Yeah, it's weird. I actually do a lot of things. I kind of wear a lot of hats. So I do our content marketing, which means articles that go up on our site. I do a lot of our live streams on our YouTube channel and Twitch channel. We do all different kinds of streams, unboxings, things like that. I go to all the conventions like CES, and I manage our Discord community. So it's a lot of kind of different things. I come from your world. I used to be a reviewer and a writer and a podcaster and all that stuff. And so, after 10 years of doing that, I kind of moved to this side, and I'm ultimately doing a lot of the same stuff: writing, editing, podcasting. But it's cool because I get a little bit more insight into sometimes how these things are made, which is kind of a new experience for me, and getting to kind of give feedback on products and things like that, which has been really fun.
I love that because now we get a chance to talk shop on multiple layers. One, we share a common ethos in having worked behind the microphone and doing all this kind of work in this space. I've also worked in some of the technology spaces. I used to work at Intel in their AR and VR space.
Oh, okay.
So like we have a shared language here of understanding where some of those things kind of lay. When you're doing that kind of work, having that eye, and I think that perspective. Talk to me a little bit about how that has kind of informed the way you do the work now. Because I think I knew very little before getting into those spaces, having been a person on this side of the fence first, right? And then learning what it was like to understand the way that a marketing beat works, or the way that, what does a go-to-market plan actually look like in those respects, and being a part of that funnel in that way. What was kind of your biggest kind of takeaway from changing in those worlds, or being a part of both of those?
It's interesting because in a way it's kind of a culture shock, and there are still so many. Sometimes it feels like there's still so many acronyms and things like that I don't know. Because one of the great things about the way that ASUS has our team set up, right? Like, we have a big marketing department, and everyone that works there is amazing. We've got gamers there. We've got people who've been doing marketing their whole lives. Our little team, they kind of let us off the leash, and we kind of run free a little bit, which means that, you got to learn that marketing voice and kind of some of the strategies. But at the end of the day, what works best for us is serving the gamers in our community, in our audience, right? Which is not that different from what I was doing before. Ultimately, our goal is to answer the kinds of questions that people are asking about our products, so that they can find the right ones, so that they understand how to make the most of it, use our software, all of that kind of stuff. Which, that's really similar to what I was doing before, just kind of from the other side of the fence. So for us, it really is all about serving that audience and answering the questions that they have.
Yeah, I know that must be a fun part of the job, and also a little bit daunting, right? Because you're getting so many different versions of understandings from the community. You have folks who are very, very kind of attuned to being in that tech space. You have the kind of layman's who are in that space, and then you have the enthusiasts who are kind of at the top of that funnel most times, who are the kind of most evangelist parts of the conversation, right? Those are the folks who are driving a lot of communications for the teams through their own work and through their own kind of love of the product. What has been a really fun kind of layer of that for you, kind of working through each one of those layers and being able to craft language and for each one of those?
Dude, you nailed it. I mean, actually, I think one of the most interesting parts for me is I'm going to take it in a different direction and say something that I didn't have to do as much on the other side, that I've kind of had to learn as I go here, is because the kind of marketing that I do is so steeped in the community, right? I'm the admin of our Discord server. We're on Twitch and YouTube every week, talking to people in chat and things like that, is synthesizing all of the feedback we get from people about the products. When the original ROG Ally launched, that was such a huge launch, and our Discord got flooded with people who had just bought the device and was like, this is awesome. I totally want to see this in the next software update. Or like, oh man, the hardware would be even better if you tweaked this kind of, and the feedback was just like a tidal wave coming in. And so then going to the people on the product development side and being like, okay, here's all of this feedback we have. Some of it is conflicting. Some people want one thing, some people want another thing, and they can't both coexist in the same product. And then learning from them as the past few years have gone by, I'm like, okay, here's how we kind of make these decisions, synthesize that feedback. Sometimes you have to unpack it and find the question underneath the feedback underneath the feedback, right? Like, you say you don't like this button being on the device, but what you're really saying is, I accidentally hit this button sometimes and that bugs me. Other people really like the button. So the feedback under the feedback for us is like, maybe we make that button remappable or unmappable so that both camps are happy. It's not always about just like, I want this thing, and so we do this thing. It's about kind of seeking that deeper understanding of what the pain points are, what the use cases are for all of these different types of users, like you said, and then turning that into a product that serves as many people as possible. That is something that I had no experience doing, and that's been so interesting to learn about.
I absolutely love to hear you talk about that, because that's a very cathartic and therapeutic moment for me too, where I'm like, oh, you feel my pain and you actually understand how that works in a real tangible way. Because I think a lot of folks who, when I'm talking to folks on social media, when we're having, comments around our show, and I'll have a take about a thing, it's coming from a space that you occupy, right? It's a space that I am also kind of involved in, and trying to figure out how do you share that information properly and widely, knowing that you are hitting so many different segments of the market, and trying to figure out how to get that sometimes very technical language into a space that is much more digestible for folks to be able to kind of infuse into what they're trying to get as that feedback. The other part of that I think is really interesting is hearing you talk about the kind of workflow between the parts of the organization in that way. You and the team being that front line, gathering of information, synthesizing that information, and shooting that back up to product development and product, stuff that will eventually go into next versions of R&D for things. How difficult is it to parse out some of that too? Because again, it's like the ability to know what people are doing, because you can't see it. You're not over their shoulder looking at them using the device, and knowing that folks don't necessarily have the full breadth and depth of language to be able to give you exactly what you're looking for in that way. How has it been translating that up to the folks who are making the kind of fullest decisions at that point? What are the things that you're hearing from them that are like, can you ask this to get a better understanding of what this is from the folks out in the field? What's the kind of conversations you're having with that part of the team?
Absolutely. And so one of the cool things about the way that we're gathering feedback is obviously, we're reading all the YouTube comments, we're watching all the reviews, we're reading Reddit and all that. Like, people think that we don't see that stuff. We're trawling that stuff all the time for feedback. But one of the cool parts about my job, kind of like I mentioned, is because I'm in the Discord all day long, every day, because I'm on stream with people who are sending us feedback in chat live, I can actually have a conversation with them. And I can actually say, oh, that's an interesting piece of feedback. Okay, tell me more. Can you explain to me, like, what I don't quite understand the situation that you're in when this is happening, or whatever, right? And that way that we can kind of start to parse that stuff out. And one of the things that we try to do, especially on our live streams, kind of like you mentioned, is like, you have this really tech savvy audience that maybe doesn't understand certain aspects of the product development cycle, and some of the hidden costs that go into things or whatever, and we can explain those things to them. But then even especially the more layman side, the people who aren't necessarily tech enthusiasts, they're just gaming enthusiasts who want to get into their games and play. We still try to, like you said, distill that technical information down as simply as possible, so that they do understand some of the decisions that we make and some of the trade-offs that we constantly have to battle. We get so many people being like, why don't you just make an ally that has this and this and this and this and all these premium features? And I'm like, yeah, that's great, but it would be $2,000. Do you want to pay that? Because we would not sell as many of them. And like, there's this whole kind of, but being able to have that back and forth conversation where it's not just like, I'm not just yelling into the void, or we're not just keeping it secret and putting out the device with people feeling like we're not listening to them. Having a back and forth with people and really gaining an understanding of how they're using the device in a way that maybe is very different than the way I use the device, because I'm a gamer, I play on these all the time, but I'm just one guy. And even, our team of people who are testing this stuff, that's just a team of people. It's not the, huge audience that we ultimately sell to that could be using the device in ways we never even thought of.
Yeah, I think the thing I hear also in many, many discussions with developers and with folks who are working on that side of the fence is, you think you know what's out there until the players get their hands on it. And then it changes everything in terms of, well, here are the things that we're looking out for, and then these whole other layers of discussion prop up after those, and you have to kind of deal with those pieces. I do want to dig into conversations. I love that you kind of talked about the ROG Ally. and it has been one of my favorite devices of the past couple of years. I think for
Dude,
me,
same.
yeah, like especially with the brand cohesion and connection with Xbox and the Xbox ROG Ally X, which is now my favorite handheld in the space. Not only just because of the
That's
gaming
what I like to
performance
hear.
there, but like my hands don't hurt, and that is a huge
For real,
thing.
right?
I'm an old fart, so like I need to. I need my hands to keep going as long as I can because I want to play as well into my 50s and all of those things. How has it been from your side of the fence? Because I know there are so many different connections to how that works when you have two big companies decide that they're going to collaborate and do something like this. From your role and what you've gotten the chance to do in terms of sharing some of the messaging around that and sharing, what this device can do to a broader audience, what has it been like to be a part of those discussions and seeing all of those things kind of work in the minutia of that? What has it been like to kind of have that be on your plate in some form or fashion?
I mean, it's so cool because, like I said, just having that kind of pinky in the product development side of things as I'm giving feedback and stuff has been awesome just on the ROG side. Like just doing that with ROG has been so cool. And then you bring someone like Xbox into it and all of a sudden this whole world opens up because one of the big reasons we partnered with them is okay, we've got this really good piece of hardware that we've kind of, really fine-tuned over the last couple of generations. But one of the biggest pieces of feedback that we were still seeing was that people wanted the software to be more streamlined. They wanted it to feel a little bit more console-like. And the benefits of Windows are great, but what if this could be like an Xbox, right? And so being able to actually partner with Xbox themselves and have an opportunity to be like, okay, their resources are enormous. Not only do they have a direct connection with the Windows team, and I think, first of all, this is like this collaboration, right, between us and Xbox is unlike anything that we've really seen with these two giant brands coming together in this really integrated way. And then even when you look at the Xbox and Windows team, the way that they have come together and started to work on that Xbox mode that I believe right now is starting to roll out to other PCs and all of that kind of stuff. That level of being able to say, what can we do with the underlying OS in addition to the Xbox experience that is going to make this better? What can we do on the developer side? Because Xbox owns these publishers and developers, right? How can we work with the folks actually developing the games to make that experience better on a handheld? Not that long after we launched the new Xbox Ally, you saw Doom: The Dark Ages get this software update where if you started playing it on a handheld, it had a new handheld preset for graphics settings, and it would automatically set those if it detected that you were booting that up on the Xbox Ally. That stuff matters too, because there's so much we can do on the hardware side and there's stuff that they can do on the software side. But then having that even deeper third layer, the connections to the game developers, gives you so much freedom to really dial in that experience.
Ooh, I'd love to hear you talk about that. Because I think the thing that I don't think a lot of folks know is that word enablement, right? The enablement part of how it works back and forth between two companies like that, and the suggestions and the brainstorming that goes across of like, oh, how do we refine this into a way that is, using some existing hardware that has been revamped and changed over the couple of generations to now get to where we have the kind of Xbox branded version of it now that has a lot of that software baked into it alongside Armory Crate and all those other pieces of it, of that software already being something as a well-known entity in the space, and how that collaborates to do that plus the Xbox mode. We were getting things both on the hardware, they're both software, enablements, but there's like an OS layer and almost a kind of, skin UI version of some of the things you're able to kind of get to. So you don't necessarily have to always go directly into the Windows OS to be able to get to some of that stuff. What were some of the good learnings from, the continuation of building on those pieces of software that have waterfalled from, things that came from the desktop app that are now moved into the mobile app on a device like this. What have been some of the cool things that you and the team have found that have been like, oh, this has worked really well here. This will work extremely well on a handheld device in this space.
Yeah, I mean, so a good example of that might be, a while back in the Xbox app on the desktop, you had those kind of like that little performance profile that would detect your hardware and your machine. And it'd be like, oh, this game is going to run well on your machine, or like this game is going to run okay on the hardware that you have, right? That when you browse the Xbox store, it would have that little line of text. And for the handheld, we were able to take that and expand it further, right? And be like, okay, Xbox would go through their library and say, okay, this title has good performance. It has built-in Xbox like button prompts. It has text that is easily readable on a 7-inch screen. We're going to give it this badge that says it's handheld optimized, right? And if one of those things doesn't quite hit the mark, we'll say that it's mostly compatible, and we will list exactly what it is that maybe that you might want to watch out for in that game. It might require some graphics tweaks, or it might require you to change the font size a little bit bigger, or whatever, right? So that was a cool thing that got expanded when that Xbox app kind of came to this more handheld form factor. The other cool thing that you mentioned, talking about kind of crossing the streams with our software and their software and our hardware is, and you kind of mentioned, because a lot of people look at this and say, okay, so it's an ROG Ally, but with an Xbox logo on it. Like, is it really? And that really isn't what's happening here, right? This isn't just a co-branding thing. This is a co-development thing. And one of the really cool things that's unique to this device specifically right now, because of our partnership with Xbox, is their ability to develop for this specific hardware. And one of the things that we released in the past couple of months is called default game profiles. So when you launch a supported game, so like Forza Horizon 5 is a good one. Hollow Knight has it, a whole bunch of others. There's a big list of games that support this. Instead of having to pick, I want to run this at turbo mode at 25 watts, or I want performance mode, having to find the right mode for the frame rate that you want, it just automatically sets it for you. It sets the ideal wattage and the ideal frame cap for that specific game all automatically. And that's something that you can only do when you have Xbox working with our code and this specific piece of hardware to make that experience more streamlined. So, because the fewer settings that people have to tweak, the better. Most people just want to jump into their games and play. We want to give you those options if you love to tweak things like I do. But the default should be, I'm in the game, it runs great, let's play.
Yeah, I think what has me most excited is knowing that we already have a fantastic baseline for how that is working, and knowing that, one, I'm using this more often than I ever thought I would, which is great for me. I'm sure my wife is mad at me for playing in bed.
Yes, same, straight up, same thing here.
I'm like, oh, she went to sleep. All right, I can get some games in a little bit before she went to sleep, right? But also, I think the discussion about how the team has been thinking about how to get the time to fun as fast as it possibly can be, right? And looking at future titles that are going to be coming down the line and saying, oh, I have less of a worry of, will this run well on this device? That feels like that is a thing that has kind of gone away, even in the past year, where I remember on other handheld devices that I would play with, I spent so much time tweaking and trying to figure out, oh, is this thing going to run in the way that feels good? Is it going to, turn up the heat literally on my handheld device? Is it going to, make the fans run super loud? Like, this thing runs so whisper quiet while also being able to do all this stuff. It is really a fantastic innovation in terms of getting all of those pain points that I think a lot of handheld gamers have had over the years, kind of in line with that stuff. Thinking about that, where are you most excited to kind of see the line kind of grow and things you all are thinking about for innovations that are not necessarily coming in that you can't talk about, but like things that you feel are for you as a player, things that you're also excited for?
Yeah. First of all, I love that term, time to fun. Gonna start using that in internal meetings. That's a great term for exactly what we're going for. And I'm excited to see that grow most of all. There are other things in the pipeline. Some we've announced, some we haven't. I mean, one of the things that we have announced, for example, is pretty soon we're going to have an update that's going to make docking the Ally to a TV or a monitor, mouse, keyboard even more seamless, which in its own way is very much a time to fun kind of thing, right? Because it's not tweaking game settings necessarily, but it's going into the projection settings and making sure it's displaying on the right monitor and connecting your controller, and you have to disable the controller that's built into this so it recognizes, all of that stuff. We want that to be as seamless as possible, because there are a lot of people that actually like to take their Ally, dock it to a TV, and then use it as like a home game console, right? They just have the one device. So that kind of stuff, like that philosophy is kind of surrounding so much of what we're working on right now, and what Xbox is working on their side too. And so I want to see I want to see this device become the full featured go anywhere handheld, that every time I leave the house, I've got my games, I know I can play them offline, I can boot into them really quickly. Having those developers developing specifically for this is so huge. I mean, you probably have seen the past couple, Xbox game showcases, having them talk about, and all these games are going to be handheld optimized, which is because, like you said, a couple years ago, it was like, this game runs okay, but I got to kind of mess with stuff, or I got to wait for some updates. And with more and more developers getting on board with this, that's just going to blow the whole scene wide open.
I can't take credit for time to fun. I have to say that on the record. I have to give that to my old boss, my old Intel boss, Kim Pallister. I love you. I miss you. I gotta give him love for that, because that was his phrasing on that, and it stuck with me because it is so pertinent to all of these pieces. I do
especially from a handheld too, because if you're sitting at home and you plop down, you want to be in your game real quick, but on something like this, you might only be jumping into a game for 10 minutes or something. And every second that you are waiting before you're in that match of Rocket League, before your kid's soccer practice is done or whatever, is crucial.
Yeah, it changes so much of what you do, because that's like my gaming handheld space is usually at the end of a day. Like I've played stuff on a console for a couple of hours. I'm finishing up dinner. I've done that, getting ready to kind of lay down and get that last little bit of dopamine hit before I go to bed, which is probably what you're not supposed to do if you're trying to go to sleep. You're actually trying to pull it down. And I'm like, let's play Resident Evil on a handheld.
Let's give myself some nightmares.
Yeah, exactly. Let me scare myself to sleep. But it's those moments that I think about a lot when it comes to where this space has gotten so quickly and so well. Like, I feel like it's really moved itself into really good space. And I'm really actually happy to hear you talk about that docking experience, because I, as a person who have a lot of friends who are like, they are PC first players, but they want a console-like experience to be able to do I don't want to sit at a desk and do it and play, on a monitor this size. And I have been leading people before these handhelds have come out to say, you should get a NUC. NUC gaming is actually fantastic. And like the ROG NUCs that I've seen have been ridiculously good. So I've been leading people in that direction. Great. But this is also a space now where I'm like, now with that docking experience, to be able to have even more of that.
And that's actually almost all of my gaming. If it's not done on the Ally, it's done on the TV behind me that I have a custom built PC hooked up to. And I just use Xbox mode on that. Like, because after sitting at a desk all day, I don't want to sit at a desk and game at night. Like, I want to be able to kick back on the couch and relax. NUCs are sweet though. And the cool thing about a NUC is you could it's so small, you could mount it behind the TV and have a completely visible game console. Like, that's what's so cool about those devices.
Yeah, man. Those are the days, man. I was like, in my techno lust, I keep looking at the one that's on the ROG site, and I'm like,
the new ROG NUC is sick.
Dude. It's so good. I know a friend of mine was at either CES or Computex some years ago, and had seen early version. And a couple of my old Intel buddies, they went over and are working in that division now, and I was like, man, you get to play with so much fun stuff over there in that space. So it's cool to be able to see that. I do want to talk about another collaboration and another partnership that I've seen you all do very recently, which I, as a big, huge Hideo Kojima fan, was like, wait a minute, you're doing what? What's happening now? Like, wait, Kojima's putting out a laptop with Asus and making this thing. The first thing is, this thing is stupidly pretty. Like, it is unreasonably pretty in the way that this thing looks. You know, and getting a chance to see them all kind of pull this together with the Flow Z13 laptop, which is, I don't know, walk me through kind of what this is in its kind of fullest capacity.
Yeah, so we've had the ROG Flow Z13 for a couple of years. This is kind of our like 2-in-1 gaming tablet, right? It's got a touchscreen, it's got a detachable keyboard, it's got this really like efficient but powerful AMD Strix Halo chip in it. Really amazing device. And then this year we released kind of a very, very special edition version of it that we collaborated on with Kojima Productions. So we've done some of these before. We've collaborated with other brands to kind of do these special edition laptops or computer components, stuff like that. You've seen, you know, we had the Evangelion line and the Hatsune Miku line. We worked with Acronym and Alan Walker on some laptops. But the Kojima one is definitely special because what better, like, who better to collaborate with than one of the biggest visionaries in the gaming space specifically, right? With such an eye for this, like you said, beautiful design. And so, you know, if you're a Kojima fan, you know Yoji Shinkawa, his genius art director who contributed directly to the design of this machine. It is based off of the previous Flow Z13, but it is not the exact same silhouette. Like, you will notice that it does look very different, not just in terms of the colors and stuff, but in terms of the shape of that keyboard, the legends on the keycaps, the design on the back of it. I mean, we even use different materials, right? Yoji Shinkawa came to us and was like, it would be really cool to use carbon fiber on this because that's like part of our design language with our mascot and stuff. And carbon fiber is pretty difficult to work with in a capacity like this. So he kind of came to us and he was like, this isn't actually possible though, right? Like, carbon fiber would be cool. We can't do that. But our team doesn't like the word impossible if we can help it. So they figured it out, right? And went back to him and was like, we can do it. Let's do it. The final product looks and feels incredible. Same with like the laser etching. That was another bit of a challenge we had. He had this really cool idea for laser etching that design on the back. And it was very difficult to do with that design in that spot the way that he had designed it. So we went and bought a bigger laser etching machine in order to make it work, just because it was like, it look how well it turned out. It looks so freaking cool.
So good. It is
so
good.
What a cool design process to be able to work with someone that legendary on something like this for something that, like, you know, there's so much crossover between our audience and Kojima's audience, right? So the feedback that we got on that once we announced it was so validating to see, because everyone got so hyped for it.
I mean, I loved, besides the just like gorgeous design of this machine, I was watching the kind of dev story prior to us recording today, and I was like, them talking about the specifics of how they did the kind of air vents on the back of the machine, and trying to figure out good ways to not only again use the performance in a way that Asus is known for, to make sure it's cooling properly, so when you're gaming on this thing, you won't feel that kind of in the machine, but just also the design of what that takes to be able to get that to aesthetically look pleasing in a way that is very different. I think what I love about Asus products in those ways is that there is this really intentionality to design and function, and how they work together in unison to be able to bring something really special to the space. I know, you may not have gotten a chance to work with Kojima-san directly, but I think the ideas that are coming through him and his team are well felt and appreciated by the folks over on your side of the fence, because it does feel like there is this ethos of grandeur that happens within that space. I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about that part of it in conjunction with this, of like, you talked a little bit about, you know, the ends to getting those things done, the new laser etching stuff and all, and design and product and stuff. But like, what does that mean for a team to be able to work together with a person like this to build something that is extremely unique, something I haven't really seen in the space, not only from the kind of detachable keyboard to tablet angle of it, which is again almost a 2-in-1 machine, but just having that connected branding alongside what we know of Kojima as a visionary in that way.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head in a lot of ways, right? Kojima Productions is a very intentional group of people, right? They have a vision always, and they're kind of, and they would describe that vision as exploring what is possible through play. Right, they have this mascot that that guy in the suit with the flag and the carbon fiber mask, known as Ludens. Ludens is Latin for those who play, and it's not just passive play, right? Like if you've ever experienced a Kojima game, those listening, I know you have, right? You know it's all about the kind of play that makes you think, that changes maybe how you view certain parts of the world. Kojima Productions is all about exploring like the boundaries of what's possible within the gaming medium. And we feel at ROG, we feel like we have that same goal, just from a different kind of area of the equation. And so to, again, like you said, to work with someone else who's such a visionary in that space is one of the coolest collaborations we've ever had the opportunity to do. And kind of like I mentioned earlier, there are some partnerships that, you know, for some companies, it's like, let's slap both of our logos on it and call it a day. But this is not like that, because we live and breathe in that same space, and everything we do is for that community. You know, we were just so humbled to be able to work with someone like that and have them contribute their own unique style to the device, and also work with us where our expertise is, like you were talking about, right? Like taking the vents on the back and being like, okay, they have this design idea for this, and we have necessities in terms of how certain things have to be placed for the laptop to function properly. Let's not compromise. Let's integrate those things into the design in a way where every little thing feels intentional, because that is what they do, right? And that is what we do. And to be able to bring those two sets of ideas together and create something wholly unique is just so awesome.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, getting a chance, because you can tell when Kojima's feeling himself, when feeling a thing, when he's like, he has a very specific smile when he's doing a thing, and he's like, there was a part in the dev doc where he was like playing with the because there's a set as well. It's like
the mouse and headset and mouse mat. Yep.
And the headset looks ridiculous. But like
that's just my favorite part too. It looks so good.
I was
not to mention the case that it comes in too.
God.
That white suitcase, which is,
nuts.
I mean, it looks awesome and it feels incredible too. Like the action of opening it is so smooth and the latches, like it's so satisfying.
I'm such a nerd and love stuff like that though, but it's so good, right? I know people are listening to this like, Khalif, shut the hell up. Like, what are you talking about in terms of like, I like to see the case. I'm like, no, but it feels good. It's
but I know that there are people listening that totally get that too, right? And like that's who it was made for.
Yes, yeah. You know when something, the same people who are like, oh no, I like the way that my mouse clicks here or this keyboard clicks here. Yeah. Like it's for us who are having that conversation. I'm gonna ask you one last question because we're almost out of time. Is all right. So we give you the magic wand. We say, Whitson, you get to make the next collaboration, one of your own choosing, one that you've always wanted to do, something that speaks to your heart, your mind, and soul as a gamer. What would be a collaboration that you would do, and what device would you do it with?
That's a really hard question. You put me on the spot, man.
Mini spot.
You know, it's funny because if you had asked me that a year or two ago, I would have said like, oh man, I would have loved to see like a Doom collaboration. But we actually did that last year. We did the Doom, the Dark Ages graphics card, which was so sick and one of my favorite pieces that we did. I could totally see like, okay, so if I'm just thinking off the top of my head here, I could put my favorite laptop together with one of my favorite games, and they would totally work together. My favorite laptop we make is the Zephyrus G14, the thin and light, ultra portable. But honestly, you could do this with one of the Strix machines too. I'd love to see a collab with like a Forza Horizon 5 type thing, like a total hot rod, like super sleek, but like colorful and like that's the first thing that comes to mind. Would that, if I had my magic wand, I would take a few days to sleep on it. But that's the first thing that comes to my mind, and that's because that's one of my games that like that's the game I play in between every other game I play. I always come back to Forza Horizon, and it's the in terms of the aesthetic of something like supercars, there's so much fun stuff to play with there in terms of, because it's hardware and hardware.
I'd love that. That's a damn good answer right off the top of the head. I did put you on the spot a
cool.
little
I'll
bit.
take it.
Damn good answer. Damn good answer in that way. Seriously, man, I want to thank you for being on the show with us today. We run out of time. That 30 minutes went real fast.
I know, man. I could do this for hours and hours, and people would stop listening. But
no. I mean, it just means we have to bug you to come back on another time. That's the way.
Hey, anytime, man. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Love hanging out.
Seriously, thank you again for being here on the show. Thank you for dropping some gems on us with all of your knowledge there. And as a brother in marketing, I feel your pain and I feel your joy. I know what it's like, man, to go to work in those spaces and to make all this wonderful stuff happen. So I'm very excited to see where you all continue to grow. It has been really fun to be able to see these initial collaborations with these very specific folks be in the space, and to see how that's kind of growing the brand and the ecosystem of hardware for all of you as well. If there are any places where you'd want to send folks to learn more about the gear that you all are putting out, where are some of the places to go check out for more ASUS gear?
I mean, you can always see our entire lineup at rog.asus.com, but what I will somewhat more selfishly tell people, but also if you're sitting here listening to this or watching this, you might want to listen to or watch us do all the same stuff every week on our Twitch and YouTube channel. So go follow ROG Global on YouTube. We're unboxing new products all the time, getting really in depth about them if you want to get nerdy. And we have a streamer who streams full time on that channel as well, showing off the latest games on our newest hardware, which is always fun to watch and check out. So, yeah, man, love what you guys are doing here. Thanks to not just you, but those people who are listening to us and giving us all that feedback all the time. Everything we do is for you guys. So, super appreciate it.
Well, again, thank you, man, for coming through. Everybody at home, go check out the content. It is really cool to see brands like this doing work like that. I think it's a very necessary and needed thing to be able to connect with the audiences in real ways, in those ways. So until next time, we're going to take a quick break. We'll have more Spawn on Me after that, and we'll see you in a minute. Yo, what a fantastic interview with Whitson. Again, thank him for coming through and hanging out with us here on Spawn on Me. Always great to be able to hear insights from folks who are doing the work every day and making really fun activations happen and really fun collaborations in the mix. Make sure you go and check out their content because they're working really hard on that stuff. So that is our show for this week. Thank you all for watching. Thank you to all the folks who have been hanging out in the chat. Shout out to Dragons as well for the super chat over on YouTube. Make sure you're checking us out there on twitch.tv/SpawnOnMe, youtube.com/SpawnOnMe, our TikTok and Instagram pages. We've been putting up some short form stuff up on over there as well. So please make sure you're going to check that out. And shout out to literally everyone in the chat. It is Easter Sunday. You could be doing anything else today. It is fantastic to have you here rocking with me here during the live broadcast of the show. We are now in year 13 of the Spawn on Me podcast, still going strong, making it happen. Please make sure you're subscribing on podcast platforms around the globe, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the other places that we reside, and always a fantastic day here in Chicago. So until next week, we have some really good stuff on the way. We have a really good conversation with the folks from Ball and Gun Game. If you saw the work that we did over at GDC and having their post go viral showcasing their game ball and gun gamers. You're literally shooting a ball in a basketball court while shooting zombies. There's a lot of cultural conversation that goes along with that. We'll be talking to them next week. We have an interview that we recorded, and we'll be sharing with them next week. And who knows what's going to happen during the discussions that are happening in the gaming space this week. It already blew up last week with PlayStation and all this other stuff. Who knows what this week is gonna give us for more information for that discussion. So until next week, have a wonderful Easter. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Wash your hands, wash your butt. Take care of each other. Be good. Go play some marathon. I'm gonna go play some marathon after this, and we'll see you all very, very soon out there. Be good and peace. Thanks everybody for coming through today. Big shout out to everybody in the chat. Skyfellow says this has been a great pod, and so glad it was early enough for me to check on my. Oh, no doubt. Yeah, it was an early day because I'm gonna be. Oh, I forgot to say it. I'm gonna be on the BBC. I'm gonna be on the BBC in a couple of hours actually. So if you are on BBC Radio. If you listen to BBC Radio, I'm going to be over there talking about cozy games and stuff like that. So like stuff like Power Wash Simulator and all those things and why people like it. So make sure you're checking out that stuff too. I'll be on the BBC in a couple of hours hanging out over there. So have a wonderful rest of your day. Go check out some stuff. Go play some games. Go have some fun. And we'll talk to you all soon. We'll get up out of here. And much love to y'all. And peace.